Hi guys, welcome back. My name is Rebecca, and if you're new here, thanks so much for joining me. Today I want to talk about how you can prepare yourself for winter power outages. So a couple days before Christmas, we had a very bad storm where I live, and I think a lot of the country dealt with a lot of extreme weather, and we ended up losing power at our house. We've lost power at our house a lot. We've lived here for almost a year and a half, and we've lost power definitely over a handful of times, which seems pretty extreme. I don't ever remember living in a place where the power goes out so often. So I put together a list of things that I've learned. A lot of these things you'll be aware of, but there's a couple of things I'm going to share at the end of the video that I think I've learned the hard way, and I think some other people I've seen learn the hard way. And so just to prepare yourself, I wanted to share what I've learned and give everybody a list of things. This list is not exhaustive. This is not everything that you absolutely need to do to be 100% prepared. And I wanted this list to be something that you don't have to go out and spend a ton of money on. So yes, you could go get a generator or heaters for inside of your home that are made for that, but I'm focusing more on things that you probably already have or things that you can quickly and cheaply get from the grocery store, so you're not going out and spending a whole bunch of money to prepare yourselves. I live in New York. It's very cold here in the winter time, although we have been having a weird sort of warm winter for the most part. Like I said, we had that storm that came through bringing a ton of wind and snow, and it did knock our power out. And in our town, I think there was maybe 400 or 500 people without power, and of course we were one of them because we just always seem to lose power for some reason. So first I want to talk about how to keep warm in your home when you are dealing with a power outage during the winter. One really easy thing you can do is to keep extra blankets in your home. Blankets seem to be like a hot commodity item these days. I know my daughter is obsessed with having all sorts of different blankets. So we do have a ton of blankets in our home for our couch and beds and stuff like that. Keep extra ones on hand. I know in our latest power outage, we headed over to the neighbor's house with blankets on us, and that kept us warm while we had to go outside and while we were inside. Our last power outage, it was very, very cold, like wind chills in the negative numbers. And by the time our power finally came back on, it was 58 degrees in our house, which I could not believe that it got down so cold. And that was only for the power being out for about 6 hours. So the temperature can drop really fast in your home. So that's why it's such a great reason to be prepared for things like this. Another great thing to have on hand in addition to blankets is if you have hand warmers. So you can get them right at the Dollar Tree, but I would probably recommend buying them in bulk. I think you're going to get a better deal for them if you're buying a large quantity of them, and you can get them available right online. What else? So another thing you can do is keep doors shut to rooms that you're not going to be in. This is going to keep the heat where you want it to be. And also, if you have doorways that don't have doors on them, you can hang up blankets right on them to keep the heat in the room you want it to be in. Tarps are another great thing for that. If you're trying to keep the heat somewhere, that's a great idea. Another thing you can do to keep your home warm during a power outage in the winter is to close your curtains or your blinds. This is going to help keep the heat in and the cold out, but I would recommend if it happens to be sunny out, maybe open up the blinds if the sun is going to be coming into your home, because that could help keep it warm. If you live in a home or apartment that's drafty, you could use those things you put on your doors to help keep the drafts out. I don't know specifically what they're called. But they're just a material that have like the round things on them that you can put in front of your door. Some of them attach right to the door, so you have one on either side. If you don't have those, really simply you could just roll up a towel and put a towel in front of the door to keep the drafts out. Another thing you can do if you're trying to keep warm is to pitch a tent. I don't know if we have a tent. And then if you do have a tent, you have to have a space big enough to be able to put the tent up in. So another way, if that's not going to work for you, I think a great idea is to actually build like a fort with blankets and pillows. That's super fun anyways. You could just build yourselves a little fort right in your living room, grab a board game, and just hang out in there until the power comes back on. Now, yes, you can go out and get yourself a generator for your home, but those things cost a lot of money, and a lot of times it's just not feasible for people. So you can get a generator as an alternative, or they make heaters that are available for use in your home in the event of a power outage, but you just want to make sure you're using the right kind. You don't want to get ones that are not supposed to be used for indoors. So just make sure you're using indoor approved heaters if that is a route that you're planning on going on during a power outage. In addition to keeping yourselves and your home warm during a winter power outage, you're also going to want to keep yourself fed and watered, which you're not really going to be able to cook during a power outage. So you have to come up with alternatives. And if you have a teenage boy in your house like I do, they're hungry all the time. So make sure that you're stocked up on your water and on foods that you can easily prepare that you don't have to cook. Because I can't tell you how many times my son told me he was hungry and there was nothing to eat because he wasn't able to cook anything. So have things that you can prepare that are easy to make and that you're gonna have on hand. So if you know that weather is coming, you obviously can get out to the grocery store ahead of time. But if you don't, make sure that you have things in your pantry that are gonna be stable, that'll last a while, so you can have them in the event of an emergency. It might not be a bad idea to invest in a little camper grill, but you do have to have fuel for those as well, and I'm not sure how expensive those things get. I think we do have one in our home, but we've never actually used it during a power outage. The other thing you could do if you have one available to you is cook outside on a grill. So we have a grill, but it was absolutely not practical for us to cook on the grill during the last storm that we had. It was cold, 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 and very windy, and there was no way that anybody was going outside to cook on the grill during the storm we had. It is an alternative if you absolutely had to. It's a great thing to have, but try to plan on things that you're gonna have on hand that you don't have to cook. Canned meat is a great idea. Make yourself a sandwich. I ate some cereal, do things that are gonna fill you up and keep you sustained while the power is out. You're gonna wanna keep your cold food cold, which I just mentioned about how I had cereal, which means that I opened up the fridge to get some milk, and then I opened it up again when I had to put it away. So you wanna limit the amount of times that you're opening up your fridge and your freezer. And one of the great things about winter in my area is that if I run out of space in my fridge or my freezer, I can typically just keep things out in my garage. So utilize outdoor spaces like that if it's going to be cold enough, and if it's colder than your fridge, depending upon how long you've been out of power. Especially at Christmas time, I just use my garage because there's always a ton of food and there's never enough room. So it's a great space for refrigeration. You could even just throw it outside in the snow if you needed to, if there's snow in your area. Another thing you can do if you know that a storm is coming and you want to prepare for it is to freeze water bottles. That way you'll have them on hand if you need them in the event that the power is out for so long that your food in your fridge or your freezer is going to spoil. It's great to live in an area that has snow and is super cold when the power does go out for certain reasons, being that you can utilize those things. Another thing too, if you're living someplace where you have well water, there's no water when the power is out. So you definitely want to make sure you have enough water on hand for that. You can flush your toilet if you're just going to use water to flush the toilet down. Sometimes that's not practical for people, so I'm just thinking you could fill up your bathtub if you needed to. Obviously, you're not going to drink that water. Another thing you can do is melt snow. The only thing with that, though, is that it takes a lot of snow to melt down into enough water to have enough water for something like that. So another thing you can do is either invest in like a little camping toilet. They have like just little buckets and things that have lids on them that you can use in an event of an emergency. Or I've seen people do this too. You just take a plastic bag, put it right on the toilet, and then you can just use that for when you have to use the bathroom. And it's easy to just grab the bag and throw it out in the garbage. So be mindful of those things if you are living someplace where there is a well and you're not going to have water. I remember growing up, we lived on well water, and I always remember like when I would go to the bathroom, be like, don't forget you can't flush. So that's definitely something to consider if you're living on well water when the power is out. So as far as lighting goes, candles are great for some things, but I don't feel that they're very practical. They don't put off a whole lot of light, and obviously they can be a fire hazard. So during our last power outage, we used these little lanterns. I picked these up at the thrift store. I think they were $1.99 each. I got 2 of them. They're battery operated and they have a little compass on the top of them, and these worked great. We actually used them during our last power outage. We were sitting here at the table that I'm at and we were playing cards, and what we did is we took these gear ties that my husband has and we actually put them on the lantern like this and actually attached them to the light fixture on the ceiling so we could have some overhead lighting. Candles just weren't going to be enough for that. We did have some candles on the table and some like little fairy lights, but those aren't giving off a whole lot of light. Another thing you might want to think of is having a headlamp. I actually just found this one the other day while I was cleaning my basement. So this is also a good thing to have. I've also shared in other videos before that I have a hand crank and solar powered flashlights, so those are something to have on hand as well. I would go with something that is fireproof, it's not gonna cause a fire, and that is going to give off enough light for you. Another thing you wanna have are batteries. I just picked up a ton of these because someone had used all my batteries. So I picked up a big container of these, and then obviously if you are going to go the candle route, you want to make sure that you have a lighter or matches on hand. So I have just a couple other miscellaneous things that I want to share with you guys. If you're in a house full of children and the power is out, they're going to get bored very quickly. So I recommend definitely having board games on hand, cards. We always, actually at the last power outage, we were playing cards and the power did end up coming back on, which was great because it was so cold in the house, but we actually kept the lights off because it was kind of fun to just sit in the dark with the lanterns and play a game of cards. So have cards, board games, books, crossword puzzles, anything like that that is going to keep you entertained. Also, make sure that you're keeping your phones charged. My daughter is notorious for not charging her phone, and like she'll leave the house and have 5% battery and is going to be gone for 2 hours. And I'm like, you can't do that. You have to keep your phones charged. And it's also a great idea to have backups. So we have little battery pack backups, and my husband has like this whole battery pack thing. I also shared these in another video about being prepared. So it's a great idea to have things like that on hand, because you don't want to have a bored child and no phone charge, because it's just a recipe for disaster, I'm telling you. Another thing you definitely want to do if you know that a storm is coming is to make sure that you fill up your gas tank. This was something that my mom always told me when I was growing up, and well, not growing up, but when I was a new driver, was to make sure that when a storm was coming, I had a tank full of gas. So definitely make sure that you do that and prepare for that as well. And then these things I think are unique, but I'm sure they're probably not unique to just me. But during one of our power outages during the summer last year, I left the house with my daughter and her friend, and we went next door to play some games. And I locked the door behind me, and I didn't bring a key because I thought I would just get in through the garage. And you can't do that. You can't get in through the garage when the power is out because there is no power to lift the garage door. Luckily, there was one window unlocked that I had to crawl through to get inside the house. So definitely don't make that mistake because you will feel like a big dummy. Another thing that in our most recent power outage, our neighbor across the street came home, could not get in through the garage, which is typically the way they get into their home, and they did not have a house key. So they fiddled outside in the very, very cold for a long time trying to get into their house, and they could not. So have a house key and make sure that you have it on you, or if you don't have one, make sure that your neighbor has one at least, so you have some way to get in the house. So I felt really bad for them. They had they could not get into their home. They had to go to a friend's house to hang out for a while because they couldn't get inside. So luckily the power was only out for 6 hours and not for 6 days, because could you imagine not being able to get into your house for that long? So those are two unique situations that I definitely wanted to share with you guys, just to make sure that you're aware. I think one last thing I want to share is to check on your neighbors. So maybe you're not friendly with your neighbors, but at least maybe get their phone numbers to check on them, especially if they're elderly. You're going to want to check on them just to make sure that they're okay during a power outage. We're blessed with the best neighbors in the world, and we get to hang out with them and eat their food and play games while the power is out. So I guess one more thing, bring your patience, right? It's not fun to have the power out. I can't tell you how many times every member of my house, my family, walked into the room the other day and flipped on the light and forgot that there was no power. So it's just so ingrained in us that we just have power. So bring your patience, especially if there's kids in the home and they're going to get bored. So I want to know from you things that you have learned during your times during winter power outages, or just power outages in general. I never thought that it would be such a problem, but I think it's definitely something to be aware of and be prepared for. So go ahead and share with me things that you've learned, tips that you've picked up along the way. I'm definitely interested in learning more so I can be more prepared next time, because I know there will be a next time. If you found value in this video, I would love for you to give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe so you don't miss out on anything that I have coming up. I am going to add this entire list to my website, which is journeywithrebecca.com. I'm still working on getting my website up to date with all of the content that I have put out online in my videos. It is a long process, especially when you're teaching yourself, but I'm getting there. So if you want to check out this list and you're more of a visual person, I will have it all listed on my website. So thank you all for hanging out with me and for watching, and I will see you all soon.